Once upon a time, in a galaxy far, far away, I was complaining about the war in Ukraine and the amount of money we put into it and the fact that we are going essentially to war with Russia. We're about to send another $1 billion to Ukraine. This brings the grand total of Ukrainian funding from the United States in cash and weaponry to $67 billion. Now, as insane as that number sounds, it is an actual fact. On top of doing this, we are helping Ukraine by getting Vladimir Zelensky, that's his name, Zelensky. We're getting his propaganda machine, and we're helping him use that and broadcast it to the world. We're letting him ring bells on our stock market, at the New York Stock Exchange. We're letting him speak at the Grammys. We're letting him meet with our celebrities and film it. We're putting him on the cover of magazines, calling him and his wife heroes. Everything that you would want to do to antagonize the opposition, which in this case is Russia. We're killing their men by proxy by sending all of these weapons to this other country. And then we're overstating how many of that country's men are dying. So we're funding the death of Russians. We're celebrating the death through Ukraine. And then we propagandize and say, oh, 80,000 Russians have been killed by this little country of Ukraine that doesn't even have 80,000 soldiers. What do you think that's going to do to a man that we, not me, but our country is saying is crazy? What is that going to do? A year ago, or actually around the time that the war started, maybe a little bit before the war started, our president and members of his administration both said that if Putin attacks Ukraine, we are going to take out Nord Stream 1.
With regard to Nord Stream 2, we continue to have very strong and clear conversations with our German allies, and I want to be clear with you today. If Russia invades Ukraine, one way or another, Nord Stream 2 will not move forward.
If Russia invades, that means tanks or troops crossing the border of Ukraine again. Then there will be no longer a Nord Stream 2. We will bring an end to it.
How will you do that exactly, since the project and control of the project is within Germany's control?
We will, I promise you, we'll be able to do it.
The European Union is warning it will retaliate against attacks on its energy networks. That is after explosions damaged 2 pipelines in the Baltic Sea, Nord Stream 1 and Nord Stream 2, that transport Russian natural gas to Europe. There have been allegations that Russia sabotaged the lines over Europe's support for Ukraine. Russia today called the claims stupid.
What are those? Those are pipelines that run from Russia into Europe. They supply, I don't know the exact countries. I want to say Germany. I don't know the exact countries. I don't want to get that wrong. I also don't want to look it up. But they supply Europe, a few countries, 3 or 4 countries at least, with oil. What happened last week, or earlier this week? Nord Stream 1 and Nord Stream 2 were destroyed, or sabotaged at least. We cut off that supply. So it's one thing to sanction a crazy person, to try and squeeze them out of making a mistake and going to war. It's another thing to kill their soldiers than to destroy their oil supply. Because those are acts of war. That goes beyond helping an ally who's not even an ally. At least not a NATO ally. These are acts of war. We're not saying, hey, don't do that, and we're going to punish you until you're done. We're cutting off the entire country's oil supply, and that is their lifeline. And we're doing it to somebody that we call crazy. What do we think's going to happen? We're killing his men. We're celebrating it. We have complete morons in our government who are calling for his death, saying he needs to be assassinated, Lindsey Graham.
I hope he'll be taken out one way or the other. I don't care how they take him out. I don't care if we send him to The Hague and try him. I just want him to go. Yes, I'm on record. Please understand, Senator Lindsey Graham, and if John McCain were here, he'd be saying the same thing, I think. It's time for him to go. He's a war criminal.
Idiots on the right and on the left celebrating this war that's not ours, that we jumped into, and we're calling for a president, whether we like him or not, we're calling for his assassination. And calling him a war criminal and calling the war illegal. All this stuff that is based on what we think, and we may be right, but we still have no right to go to war with them. How do I know this? Because we're not at war with Iran, who threatens us on a weekly basis. And it's always threatened us on a weekly basis and called for our demise. We don't go to war with them. They've killed thousands of people. Their own people, Iraqi people, Americans overseas. We've killed their people. We don't go to war. We only respond to them. So you have Russia going to war with somebody else, and we respond. Not only do we respond, but we actually go to war with them. And it's weird because I'm the only one complaining about this. Now, I did see Tucker Carlson complaining about this. So that's good. But nobody else on the right and nobody on the left is saying, hey, this probably isn't a good idea. Because we're poking at a guy that we call crazy. So now this guy, this crazy guy, says, you know what? You guys are bragging about these people beating us. You're supplying them with the weapons that we're supposedly being beat by. Keep it up and we're going to start nuking. You cut off our oil supply. I've asked you to stay out of this. For some reason you won't. Strategic nukes is not off the table.
Хочу напомнить, что наша страна также располагает различными средствами поражения, а по отдельным компонентам и более современными, чем у стран НАТО. И при угрозе территориальной целостности нашей страны для защиты России и нашего народа мы, безусловно, используем все имеющиеся в нашем распоряжении средства. Это не блеф.
This is exactly what our politicians want. One side wants it to keep the norms going so they can keep making money off of money laundering in other countries. The other side wants the American citizens to not pay attention to our economy to not pay attention to inflation, to not pay attention to crime and poverty, all due to their policies. They don't want that. So what's better than that is patriotism that comes from war. We need to take these people out. They're attacking us and our democracy, while we're attacking them and their democracy. And if you don't want to call it a democracy, that's fine. But we're attacking them and whatever they have. Full dictatorship, fine. There are many dictators. We're not at war with them. Why are we at war with Russia and claiming to not be at war with Russia, and then acting shocked when Russia says we may have to use nukes on you guys? Actually, he said in Ukraine. But they're the second world's largest nuclear power. In this war, I mean, and we're picking a fight with them. Why? We have a senile old man who has no idea what's going on, who can barely speak.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Mr. President.
Who wanders off stage now. This is 3 times this week he's wandered around stage, didn't know where to go. One time his wife had to help him. The other 2 times he's just walking around like, where to go? And he looks scared. Like, do I go there? Do I go there? I'm scared. I don't want to move. What's going on? Where am I? This is who's leading the charge in a war against the second largest nuclear power on Earth. He's beyond weak. And dictators and crazy people can see that. You don't stop a bully by sending the weakest person to them to make demands that they clearly can't carry out. And they can't even get the demands out of their mouth because they can't speak. So now we're about to be at full scale nuclear war, and we could lose millions of people. Every major city in this country has nukes aimed at it. While we brag about what we're doing in Russia, why would we give a crazy person reason for us to really call him crazy? We keep saying he's desperate, he's terminally ill, he's crazy. So then he has nothing to lose. Why are we pushing him? He doesn't sound crazy when he's talking about these things. While we don't agree with him, he sounds like a guy who's taking a stand, and he's doing it in a much, much, much more coherent way than our president does.
I started thinking about it, just as a, somebody who's raised a middle-class kid. One year, even though you didn't have the job you have now, even though you didn't get a raise that year, the difference between having a job, having a 5% raise or whatever, 3, 5, 7, whatever it happens to be, in the face of inflation, price of the pump, although that's down every day so far, but, it's like, whoa, I feel worse off. But then again, I didn't get a check for $8,000 from the government. They just, among other things. Does that make any sense to anybody, or is it just me?
So what does that mean? It probably means we shouldn't be picking a fight with a crazy, terminally ill, sociopath, murderer, mass killer, dictator. Why are we poking at that guy? If that guy was as big of a threat as we say he is, we would have done what we've done to all these other terrorists. Drop a missile on him, end him, and only him. Instead, we're pretending like he's all these things so we can turn the American public's perception of him so that we can take everybody and move their focus over here to this. Not this, this. You guys, look over here. Look over here, look over here. This is what we want you guys looking at. Not our failures and how bad our socialist policies are and how they're impacting this country. We don't want you guys looking at that. Come on, what are you doing? What are you doing? Look over there, look over there. Don't look at this. We suck. We're gonna talk to you guys about how they suck and how they're mean and they kill people. And we're gonna let you know that they're killing people by killing people and celebrating it. And then overstating how many we killed through the Ukrainians, the brave Ukrainians. $67 billion. That's what we've invested. Not even remotely close is the number that we've invested in the black communities. Definitely not since Biden's gotten into office. He just invested another $11 billion to help poor countries fight climate change. We spent $300 billion on a climate change bill. He's openly showing that he does not care about our people. He only cares about a socialist agenda, a Green New Deal, a piece of trash legislation that's destroyed other countries and is currently destroying other countries. I talked about the fertilizer shortage and then the regulation shortage of fertilizer and what it's doing to other countries. That's coming here. As soon as these midterms are over, the gas prices are going back up. You guys don't pay attention to Trump. I get it. You don't like him, orange man bad. I get it. But all of his predictions have been correct.
Before I took office, there were a lot of folks out there making some pretty bold predictions about how things would turn out. You might remember some of the predictions.
They're coming for your guns, they're coming for your jobs, and they're coming for your freedom. They hate American energy, and Joe Biden will shut it all down. He's going to.
That if I became president...
Biden's elected, he will wipe out your energy industry.
Another prediction, that is my favorite one, I must add, is that if I got elected...
Gas prices going $5, $6, $7 for a gallon.
And what is this latest prediction that he made?
So our borders were secure, gas was cheap, energy was cheap. You leave office, the consumer price index, the inflation measure, is, 1.4%. Now we're, 7 months in a row at 8.4%.
It's going to be much higher as soon as the election's over. They're artificially... I filled up the strategic reserves when oil was cheap. I bought 75 million barrels at a very, very cheap price. Filled it all up right to the top. First time it happened in 50 years where it was filled to the top. And they've taken that and they're giving it to people. It's supposed to be meant for war and for the military. Right. They're giving to people to keep the oil prices down before an election. That's where it's being used. When the election is over, gasoline will go through the roof.
All right.
And so will your heating bills, so will your electric bills.
We're paying for it. Literally paying for it. Right now it's just in money that we're paying for it. But if Putin does what he says he's going to do, we will be paying for it in actual human lives. Our human lives. American citizens. And then next up is China. I made a whole bunch of videos. I think 4 on Hunter Biden. And I covered everything. But a new story has come out about this guy. That he was sleeping with a Chinese spy. Now,
Biden at his own Fang Fang. Her name, Jackie Bao. But unlike Fang Fang, Jackie actually worked in Hunter's office as his flirty assistant. When Hunter wasn't leaving his doggy tags over her apartment, he was having her run point on a giant deal to send U.S. natural gas to China. She even gave Hunter a map telling him exactly where she wanted the energy to come from. But her primary mission seems to have been getting Joe Biden to run in 2020. New emails reveal she pestered Hunter to convince his dad to run, telling him this: "You need to help Uncle Joe run for president. He will be one of the best presidents in our country's history. We can't stand Trump anymore." And she even compared Joe Biden to Winston Churchill. So we have a Chinese spy working for Joe Biden's son, convincing them to cut natural gas deals to ship home and get their puppet Joe Biden to run for president. Does this not sound like a national security risk to you? Well, we asked the FBI what they think, and they actually got back to us, telling us the FBI has no comment. They investigated Trump over a hoax in a hotel room. But when a Chinese spy actually infiltrates the Biden family, the FBI has no comment.
If there were a more corrupt person, I have not seen them in U.S. political history. This guy is clearly compromised. And by him being compromised, his father is compromised. There is no separating the two. You cannot separate a son who is doing political things in other countries and using his father's name to do them. You can't separate him from his father. You can't. But that's what we're doing. I've seen anchors on CNN, MSNBC, CBS say, well, Hunter's doing these things. It has nothing to do with you, right? And that's how they phrase it, so that the president can just say, right, and not answer to any of this. He's called it lies. I want to see the list of 50 intelligence leaders or members of the intelligence community who said that laptop story was Russian disinformation. I want to see that list. I want to see the names of people who said that. Who are these intelligence officials, and why do they still have jobs if they were that wrong about something so simple as a laptop? They weren't wrong about intelligence overseas or weapons of mass destruction. They were wrong about a laptop that they had. It was in their possession, and they were still wrong about it. And this is who we're trusting? These are the people who are leading the way, leading the charge, and protecting us. They can't even tell you if a laptop is real and if the information on it is legit. When the guy is on video, it's not a deep fake. He's on video after video after video after video doing this stuff. Then he goes out and does an interview and writes a book that admits he did this stuff. Russian disinformation.
He was not a loser. He was a patriot, and the people left behind there were heroes.
Really?
And I resent.
Are you talking
like
about
hell.
Hunter? Are you talking about Hunter?
I'm talking about my son, Beau Biden. You're talking about.
I don't know Beau. I know Hunter.
Yeah,
Hunter
you know
Hunter got thrown out of the military. He was thrown out, dishonorably discharged.
That's not true. He
For
wasn't dishonorably.
cocaine use. And he didn't have a job until you became vice president. Once you became vice president, he made a fortune in Ukraine, in China, in Moscow,
That is simply
and various
not
other places.
true.
He
My
made a
son,
fortune.
My son.
And he didn't have a job.
My son, like a lot of people we know at home, had a drug problem. He's overtaken it. He's fixed it. He's worked on it, and I'm proud of him.
But why was he given tens of millions of dollars?
He wasn't given tens of millions of dollars. That is totally discredited.
You've already been
totally discredited.
Do me a favor. Do me a favor. Look at, I'm gonna put the videos in the description. Just look at the videos that I've made about Ukraine and Zelensky and why we're there. Just do that for me. Become informed so we can finally put a stop to this nonsense.